So the first thing that we'll start with is knife safety, which is extremely important, and we'll talk about some of the rules of knife safety. So first thing that we always want to be sure of is that we use the correct knife for the correct job. So we've got several different knives here. We've got a couple of paring knives, one of them being a tournée knife, and then we've got a boning knife, and of course our chef's knife. And our chef's knife is the workhorse of the kitchen. It is the most used knife that we will use in the kitchen, and you will use throughout your careers. Please remember when you're using your knife that we always want to cut away from ourselves. We don't want to bring the knife back. We always want to bring the knife away from us when we're cutting. Rule number 2 would be the tip of the knife always stays on the cutting board. And it's very easy when you have a French chef's knife because the French chef's knife is curved so that it allows us to rock and to slice and to chop and mince without ever lifting our knife off the cutting board. So that would be very helpful and important. Another thing that we want to do with our knives is we want to make sure that we're only cutting on a cutting board. We never want to use any kind of a knife on straight stainless steel, glass, marble, plates that we're going to put our food in. We always make sure that we are putting our food on the cutting board, on a clean, sanitized cutting board, and that's what we always cut on. It's for the safety of yourself as well as it'll help your knife last longer. Okay? Always keep your knife sharp. Okay? Every time that you pick it up, you want to hone it. And we hone that on our steel. And as we've discussed already, we're going to hold our knife the way you've been taught. We're going to keep our steel out horizontal in front of us. And we're going to bring our knife, the heel of the knife, to the tip of the steel. We're going to place it at a 20-degree angle, and we're going to run it down by flicking our wrist down. We don't want to go towards our left hand. We want to go away from it. And then we're going to switch it to the front, and we're going to keep doing that maybe 10 times on each side. And we're going to do that every time that we use our knife so that we hone it. Now, as we've learned already, honing the knife will not sharpen it. It will only bring it back to true. In order to sharpen it, we need a whetstone. Either one-sided, two-sided, or three-sided whetstone, and that's what we would sharpen it. And much like honing it, we keep that also at a 20-degree angle, and we run it across the length of the whetstone. So you would sharpen as much as needed, and that would be based on how often you use your knife. If you're using your knife every day, you're probably going to sharpen it 2-3 times a week. But when you hone every time you use the knife and every time that you change tasks. So if we're going to go from, cutting mirepoix for soup or stock, and then we need to go on and cut vegetables for service tonight, we would hone it in between. Okay? Always remember how to carry your knife. Okay? We want to hold it in our strong hand. For me, I'm right-handed. We want to hold our knife down on our side. We want to hold it loosely with the blade facing back so that if anyone knocks against us, we can just drop the knife. Which brings me to my next point. If a knife goes to fall off of a cutting board, please do not try to ever catch the knife. Just step away from it, let it hit the floor, for safety reasons. Okay? Please be sure that we're never carrying the knife in front of us. It's always to the side. And please make sure that when you are walking behind someone with a knife, that you call out, "Knife behind you," or "Sharp coming through." And that way you let them know that you've got a knife in your hand, and we don't want anything to happen to them. Another thing to always be careful of: we always clean our knives as soon as we're done with them. We never leave them in soapy water in a 3-compartment sink so that someone can put their hand down in there. So just like we wash anything else, we want to wash it in soapy water, rinse it in clean water, sanitize it, and then allow it to air dry. Okay? So we good with basic knife safety? Okay? Great. So let's talk about the skill of a knife. As I said before, this is one of the most important tools that you will use throughout your career. And although we have a lot of other tools that we can use to make knife skills a little easier on the chef, the chef's ability to handle a knife shows his skill in the kitchen. So it's very important that you constantly work on your knife skills. And possessing good knife skills is essential to becoming a good chef. So products can be prepared in a safe and efficient manner with proper knife skills. Okay? So today we're going to cover several classical knife cuts that we will use throughout the semester and that you will use basically every day in your career. Some of those knife cuts include julienne, bâtonnets, rondelles, tournés, the ability to cut small dice, medium dice, large dice, pisons, Parisians, okay? And all of these have different dimensions. And it's important that you understand those dimensions and that you commit those to memory. So that we eliminate a lot of discussion in the kitchen. If I come up to you and I say, I need 10 pounds of julienne carrots, you know exactly what I need. You start with about 12.5 pounds of carrots, you peel them, you cut the tips off, you cut 2-inch lengths, you square off your carrot, you cut 1/8 of an inch plank, you turn that plank down, you cut 1/8 of an inch length, and you've got a julienne. Okay? Take your julienne and square that off by cutting it another 1/8 of an inch, and you've got a brunoise cut, which we use for garnish. So it's important that you understand these cuts, because it would have saved me a lot of time and effort to just say, give me a julienne, instead of explaining to you what the julienne is. So that's why it's very important that you understand that. Okay? So we're going to start with a couple of knife cuts. I'm going to use some potatoes, which we've had peeled already. So we'll start with those. And what I want to do first is I want to square my potato off. Okay? So I'm going to start by slicing off my end cuts. Okay, and then I'm going to square my potato. So I'll start along the edge, and I want to just square it by cutting off the rounded corners as much as possible so that I end up with a nice square product. Okay? Now, I look and I say, this end's a little bit big, so what I want to do is I just want to come down, take a small amount off there, and now I've got a nice rectangle there. So that's what I'm going to work with, okay? So I'm going to start by saving my scraps. We can use these for a lot of different items in the kitchen. We certainly would save them for pureed potatoes. We could make mashed potatoes, Duchess potatoes, a lot of different things. So we always want to save our scraps. So now that I've squared off my potato, in order to make, I want to start with a bâtonnet. And a bâtonnet is 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches in length. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut what I'll refer to as planks. Okay, so I'm going to take my knife, square myself off on my cutting board. I want to make sure that I'm standing nice and comfortable, that I'm square to the table. I've got a nice square right here so that it helps me make a nice straight cut. So I'm going to start with the tip of my knife, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to cut a plank 1/4 inch thick. And I'm going to continue to do that. Again, the same way. I'm going to start with the tip of the knife, and I'm going to cut away from me. And I'm going to continue to cut these 1/4 inch planks, and anything that I end up with, I'm going to save in my usable waste pile. So now that I've got my planks, now I can turn them over. I'll start with one so that you could see. And now what I want to do is, again, I want to line it up, hold my knife, and start by coming 1/4 inch from the end with the tip of my knife, and I'm going to cut away from me on 1/4 inch, nice straight cut. And again, I'm going to continue to do that through the length of my potato. Any scraps I end up with, usable waste. Okay? So now what I'm left with is I'm left with a bâtonnet. Again, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by approximately 2 inches in length. If I wanted it exactly 2 inches, I certainly could use my 3D model, which has got a ruler on it, or I can put it up against my bâtonnet, and I see that I'm just where I want to be. Okay? So that's our bâtonnet. So I'll lay these out just like that so everybody can see. I'll do one more. Again, I'm nice and square to my cutting board. I'm going to cut away from me and place my bâtonnets up top. Now with potatoes, I would want to store them in water so that they don't oxidize or turn brown on me. For purposes of this demonstration, I'll leave them out so that you can see the differences. Okay, so once again, now I'm going to leave my planks on top of each other, and I'm going to come down through the two of them. Okay, so I have nice bâtonnets. Now, from my bâtonnets, I can line them up nice and straight, and now I can get my small dice. And our small dice is 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. So it's 1/4 inch cubed. Okay? So we start with a bâtonnet, we line them up, and again we bring our knife 1/4 inch, and we cut nice and straight. I use the edge of my cutting board as a guideline for myself, and I end up with what I hope are nice square dice. So again, I'll put those up on this corner, and we have a beautiful square, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, that we would use with a potato. We could use that in a nice soup. We could par cook these, let them dry, and make hash out of them. Make a potato hash with perhaps some red and green peppers, which would be very nice. Okay, so that's our small dice. Anything that doesn't match up, again, we're going to save that. We keep our scraps. We'll cook that, and we'll make pureed potatoes. Okay? So the next cut that I want to do, I want to demonstrate. I'm going to take another potato, and this time we're going to start with a julienne. Okay, and a julienne, as I said before, was 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch by 2 inches in length. So once again, I'm going to start by squaring off my potato. Okay, and I always want to do that so that I have a nice base that I can cut with. Okay, we want to make sure that we are flat to the table so that when it's round, we're not moving. So again, for safety reasons. So I'll square off. Okay, save my scraps. And now I want to cut julienne. So I'm going to start again with our planks. But this time I'm going to cut them just 1/8 of an inch thick. So we'll start down the side. Once again, I'm square to the edge of my cutting board. I'm going to start with my tip of the knife, and I'm going to slide down through, and I'm going to cut 1/8 inch planks. And I'm going to continue to do that, cutting even and straight. Saving our scraps. So once again, we've got a plank that's 1/8 of an inch thick. I'll line that up. Again, get myself nice and square. And now I want to cut it 1/8 of an inch to the left, so that I end up with 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 2 inches in length, approximately 2 inches in length. Okay, now today I'm showing you nice and slow so that you understand the cut. In the future, throughout the semester, we will be looking for speed, eventually with speed, but for now we want to be safe. So now you can see with my julienne that I've got 1/8 by 1/8 by approximately 2 inches in length. So again, I'll line them up on the board so that you can see them. Can we see them on the screen nicely? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a julienne. So again, as chefs in a production kitchen, we want to work a little bit faster. One thing I haven't said on the tape yet, I want to make sure that when you are holding your knife, okay, that we are holding the knife, again, in your strong hand. For me, I'm right-handed. We want to make sure that your thumb is on the bolster of the knife, and your thumb is on the bolster as well as your pointing finger, and that your 3 fingers are coming underneath. And this is where you have the most strength and the most control over your knife. Now, your left hand should always be in a claw. And this way we have our knuckles down so that when our knife never leaves the cutting board, we never cut ourselves. Okay, so for safety reasons, we always want to have that claw. The claw acts as a guide that we move back on the food, and that tells us how thick we make our cut. So again, I want 1/8 of an inch cut. I hold my claw and I just move my claw back, raise my knife, bring it down away from me, 1/8 of an inch on each cut. Okay, so I can do those juliennes fairly fast. So again, now we'll line those up. Okay, so now from our julienne, okay, once again, we're going to start with our julienne, and from there, we can square it off, and that will give us a brunoise. Okay, and a brunoise is used as a very small dice that we use a lot for garnishing. An example of that would be to make a brunoise consommé, which is a double-strained stock, which we clarify with egg whites and beef product, as well as tomatoes. And it's very, very clear and very flavorful, and we would cut a brunoise of vegetables, and that's how we would serve that. So we start with our julienne, and then we bring our left hand, our claw, 1/8 of an inch to the left, we slice down, and what we end up with is a 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8 inch square. Okay? And that becomes our brunoise. Okay, so once again, I'll put that up to the front of my cutting board. So I hope that you can see that. And a very small cut. If I just put 1 or 2 on my hand, we're looking for, again, all of our knife cuts to be uniform in size and shape. Okay? Great. So already we've got 4 of our classical knife cuts. So now, once again, we'll start with our potato. And this time, we're going to make a medium dice. Okay? So once again, we'll start with our potato. We'll square it off. I'll start by cutting my ends off. Come down the sides so I have a nice flat base to work with. Save my scraps. And now, just as I've made a 1/4 inch plank, an 1/8 of an inch plank, this time I'm going to come a 1/2 inch. So again, I square myself up. Nice and slow we'll start. So once again, we have a plank. We generally start with a plank. 1/2 inch by 2 inches in length. So now, in order to get a medium dice, I want to cut my stick a 1/2 inch so that I square myself off. Okay? So, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, okay, by my length. So now 2 cuts I can make from this. Once again, I start with my sticks. I line them up nice and straight. If I cut them a 1/2 inch thick, I end up with a medium dice. Okay, so let's put that next to our 1/4 inch dice, and we can see the size difference, what we're looking for. Again, square everything off. 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Now another cut that I can do from there is I can start with my 1/2 inch sticks. Okay? And instead of cutting a 1/2 inch thick and squaring it off, I can go an 1/8 of an inch, and we call this cut a paysanne. Okay, so we'll put those right here. And we can see that that gives us a nice square, almost a diamond shape. Okay, and that is our paysanne cut. Okay, now, one more cut. Okay, using our potato. There goes that one. We'll start with another one. And just move on. Okay, we'll square off once again, just like we've been doing. Okay, so now what I want to cut is my large dice. And that's going to be 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. So we'll come a little bit wider, and we'll get 2 out of this potato. Okay, so we start with our planks, square it off, get our sticks. From our sticks, we can come 3/4 of an inch and get our large dice. So let's take those right up on the table, and there we have it. Okay? So our classical cuts, once again, bâtonnets, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches in length. Julienne, 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 2 inches in length. Small dice, 1/4 inch cubed. Brunoise, 1/8 of an inch cubed. Paysanne, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/8 of an inch. Medium dice, 1/2 inch cubed. Large dice, 3/4 of an inch cubed. Okay? Any questions on our cuts on that? So the last cut that we're going to do today is we are going to do our tournée cut. And our tournée cut is a classical cut that is shaped like a wine barrel or a football, you'll hear it referred to. You can see it on our 3D model, that what we're looking for is we're looking for 7 equal sides, and we're looking for it to be 2 inches in length. Okay? And tournée itself means to turn. So we're going to be turning the vegetable. Could be potato, could be carrots, squash or zucchini. So I'm just going to start with a potato. So once again, we'll square off. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my potato and I'm going to 1/4 it. So we'll go length both ways. Okay, and then from there, I'm going to take my potato and I'm going to get my 2-inch lengths. So for purposes of showing you a few more, I'm just going to cut this potato right in half. So I end up with 8 pieces that I can tournée. Okay. So I start with my tournée knife or my bird's beak knife. I'm going to start with my potato. Again, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to start with the potato in my left hand between my forefinger and my thumb. Okay? I'm going to hold my knife with my thumb on the bottom of the knife and my forefinger at my first knuckle right on the back of the blade. Okay? And what we want to do is we want to turn the potato and the knife at the same time so that we end up curving or shaping or turning the potato. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top, and what I want, in order to get my football shape, I want to be able to start a little bit off the edge. I want to come to the edge in the middle, and then I want to go towards the middle when I finish it. Okay, so I'm going to start, again, I'm turning the knife and the potato at the same time so that I end up curving and getting larger pieces off the top versus the middle. So I'm starting to shape my football. Now what's very important is that when I start my knife, I do not want to stop it. I want to be very smooth when I do that. Okay? So I'm just going to keep moving around on my wedge of potato. I like to start with each corner. Okay? And I'm just going to keep turning it. Again, saving my scraps so that I can use them later in service. And by doing that, I am turning the potato in my left hand, and I am shaping it like the wine barrel or the football that I'm looking for. Okay? And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get 7 equal sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So now I know I have my 7 sides I can work with, and I want them to be even. So now I want to just shape my potato a little bit. See that I'm a little wide on this one. And I keep doing that until I end up with what is my tournée. Okay? And that's what we're looking for. Okay? 7 sides on that. So we square off. We end up with 8 pieces out of the potato, provided it's 4 inches in length. If it's smaller than that, you might only get 4 pieces. This is a cut that has a lot of waste to it, but it makes a beautiful presentation on the plate. Okay? So we want to make sure that we're saving our waste. This is all usable. So keep that. So again, we want to just keep coming around, turning, and shaping our football until we get 7 equal sides that are nice and even. And this is one that takes an awful lot of practice. And as you know, I will be sending you home to practice this quite a bit. Okay, so once again, there is our tournée. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, so that's our classical cuts that we will use throughout this semester and throughout your careers here, as well as your careers in the future. Any questions? Fantastic. Thank you.